Hey, beautiful soul. Welcome to Spirit Speakeasy. I'm Joy Giovanni, Joyful Medium. I'm a working psychic medium, energy healer, and spiritual gifts mentor. This podcast is like a seat at the table in a secret club, but with mediums, mystics, and the spiritual luminaries of our time. So come behind the velvet ropes with me and see inside my world as I chat insider style with profoundly gifted souls. We go deep, share juicy stories, laugh a lot, and it wouldn't be a speakeasy without great insider secrets and tips. You might even learn that you have some gifts of your own. So step inside the Spirit Speakeasy. Hey, beautiful souls. Welcome to our episode of Spirit Speakeasy. I'm going to talk about something today that is really near and dear to my heart. As the title suggests, we're going to go over 11 signs that you are an energy healer. I have to say, I'm going to talk a little bit quickly about what healing is and what it isn't, and a couple of the types of modalities of healing. There are so many different modalities that fall under this umbrella of energy healing. One is Reiki, which is a Japanese system of healing that breaks down the word Reiki, R-E-I-K-I. So the word Rei is the Japanese word for universal life force, and the word Ki, Ki, is the Japanese word for chi or energy. So Reiki then takes the universal life force energy that is around us in all things, all the time, and the practitioner is trained and attuned, initiated to direct that energy through the systems, the physical body, the energetic systems, to help them heal and balance itself. There's a lot of history and ritual and ceremony, and it does not subscribe to any denomination of religion, so anyone can practice it. So that's Reiki in a nutshell. And I have to tell you, I have always been so drawn to Reiki even before I started practicing it. But I used to be kind of scared of it. I didn't know really what it was. I didn't understand if it was me agreeing to join a religion, because I was not into that. But it wasn't. And it's been an incredible force in my life. So I was drawn to Reiki, and I was drawn to spiritual things. I'll just say it that way for now. But I never believed that I was a healer. I actually didn't understand that word even. I thought I did, but I didn't. I would have vehemently disagreed if someone told me I was a natural healer or an energy healer. If anything, I actually felt broken, like I was on some kind of personal mission to heal myself, rather than to be consumed by things like grief and victimhood. So you may have heard me talk about, all the personal development that I did. I joke sometimes and say I was the only high school student in the personal development section of the bookstore. I used to go in and read all the personal development and, self-psychotherapy type books when I was a young teen. So anyway, I would have definitely not identified as a healer, but for me, healing, energy healing really opened up, or maybe a better way to say it is, maybe there was a dormant seed in me that was fertilized and nurtured through my exploration of my gifts as a healer. And learning healing and mentoring as a healer led me to explore not only all the powerful benefits of energy healing itself, but led me personally to understand communication with guides and angels, and to be able to work in this way to unfold my gifts as a psychic and as a medium, a communicator with the spirit world, to learn about channeling and to explore the channeling area of my spiritual gifts. And after all this exploration, all these years, more than 10 years in private practice now, between my own work and observing and working with clients, sometimes the same clients over many years, really, I have discovered that all roads lead to divine love through healing and personal expansion. What do I mean by this? I mean that whether it's an energy healing session, which, is about moving our energy, we'll talk about that in a second, moving our energy to heal and expand for personal growth, for accepting the divinity in us, that divine love that's available to us. But when I look at things like mediumship readings, when someone's coming in to hear from a loved one in the spirit world, the what that boils down to for me is also healing, divine love. It's the loved one saying, everything's okay, and I'm still with you, and I continue on just in another way, so that the person that's still here in the physical world can have healing or expansion, or um, can kind of move that grief out of their way a little bit, or have it be comforted to a degree that it frees up some energy in the person experiencing the grief or the difficulty, so that they can experience more divine love and healing through personal expansion. So really, it's why healing remains so near and dear to my heart, is that even after all these years, the more I learn, the deeper that I continue to want to go. Like I said, even after all these years. So I want to talk a little bit about what healing is and what it isn't. And then I'm going to go through 11 signs that you might be an energy healer. The truth is, at heart, we all have the soul of a healer. We all have innate gifts available to us. But I want to go through these signs for you because, as I mentioned, it didn't start out this way for me, that I was like, oh yeah, we all have the ability to learn healing, to give empathy, to give compassion. Even though I've always had several interests that like could easily be considered artsy or woo woo, I've always also identified as like a pretty evidence-based or analytical person. I used to attribute this just to growing up in Boston, and my dad's from South Philly. So, just having that little bit of critical thinking edge, I guess. At the time, I would have never identified any spiritual gifts, like having them or understanding them or knowing about them. But now that I have hindsight, right? Hindsight's 2020, looking back, and now that I have more knowledge and understanding, there are several signs that I definitely would have resonated with even back then. I just didn't know that these things that we're going to talk about in just a minute were signs of anything other than just like, oh yeah, that's a part of me. So I wouldn't have recognized them at the time. But looking back, if you read me this list of 11 signs that we're about to go through, several of them definitely would have resonated with me, even when I didn't believe or accept or know or understand not only healing, but that I could actually wield these skills as my own. So essentially, the way I like to think about energy healing and talk about it is really, I got this analogy or metaphor in meditation from my guides. They show it to me as though it's a tree in the storm. Now, where I grew up in Boston, there were hurricanes. Sometimes, if it was a warm autumn, there's probably going to be hurricanes. So we would always see all these trees after storms. And if you've ever had a storm go through the area where you live, you know that the trees can be affected. Yes, they can sway and move, but if a storm is strong enough, like big limbs can be broken off of trees. And as if you're in an area that has those type of storms, or you've ever seen a tree broken like that where you live, if you look at that tree or watch it over time, it heals itself. Now, does that cracked off limb lift itself up and reattach itself and make the tree magically as though nothing ever happened to it? No, of course not. But where that limb has broken off, new growth can form, or the energy of the tree takes that nutrition, that attention to a different part, and you'll see another part flowering or growing taller or stronger. And that is how I understand energy healing to work for us. That yes, we go through storms, but with personal development, with energy healing, with things like Reiki and chakra balancing and aura clearing, and I do a ton of tools. We can work on the timeline forward and backward, and look at different areas of our life. We can do shadow work. We can do all kinds of healing. It's not going to take away the events that have happened in our life, right? The storms that we've gone through. It's not going to take it away, but we can then free up energy from the places that we feel broken or wounded or misunderstood or in fear or in grief or in victimhood. We can learn how to, with energy healing, whether you're a practitioner or a recipient, to make those areas stronger or fortified so that new growth and expansion can happen despite the storms that we've been through. So I hope that analogy makes sense to you. I'm kind of a visual person, so I see it really in visuals more than words, and I do my best to translate it into language. So I don't always know how well I'm explaining what I'm seeing and experiencing, but that's how I understand energy healing as well. And we have several energetic systems that we work with. And I'm telling you, there was a time where my first mentor would kind of laugh at me because she had like the Om symbol, and I was like, "What's that symbol?" And she's like, "I can't believe you don't know what this means. I can't believe you've never heard of Om." The vibrational sound that is the creation of the universe, and things like chakras. And I was like, "Oh yeah, I've like heard of that, but I like don't have any idea what it is." And she kind of was like, "I can't believe you don't know what these words mean or what any of this is." But like I said, I would have completely disputed strongly and not identified as a healer in any way. If anything, like I said, I thought that I was more broken and in need of healing, and I couldn't imagine how that energy worked even, or that I could be a practitioner to help someone else move energy in their system for their own healing. That would have like blown my mind back then. But like I said, now that I have hindsight and wisdom and understanding from all of these years of not only practicing but teaching, I would have recognized some of the signs had they been told to me, as like, "Oh, do you ever experience this? Do you ever experience this?" I would have, though, that I would have recognized. So this is what we're going to do. I'm going to talk about these 11 signs that you might be being called to awaken as a healer, that you do have these innate gifts as a healer, and that it is part of your soul's makeup. So let's go through these 11 signs to help you know. And as we talk about it, I'm going to give, the sign itself, and then I'm going to give some examples just so you could see how it might apply to you in your life. And just kind of keep in mind a little tally of how many of these 11 resonate with you, because I'm super curious to know. So let's dive into them. Okay, so here are 11 signs that you are an energy healer. Get ready. Sign number 1, you feel called to do something that makes a difference and to be the most authentic version of yourself. Now, obviously we're all a little bit different. So these show up for us sometimes differently and uniquely in our unique and individual lives. I usually hear this feeling called to do something that makes a difference and to become the most authentic version of ourselves. I usually hear this one articulated as some version of, I'm just not sure if this job that I'm in is my purpose. Like, I feel like there's something else that I'm supposed to be doing. Or I feel like I'm going through the motions in this job or field of study, or in this education that I'm doing, and it feels like something's missing. So I will often hear some version of that. And sometimes I'll hear it as there's got to be something more for me to be doing. Like, I'm not helping enough people. I'm not touching enough people. I'm not sure that this job, is helpful enough to the world. And sometimes I hear it as I really want to make a difference. When I ask people in coaching or for example, or in like psychic readings, we're talking about their career, and I say, like, at the core of you, like, what do you really want to be doing? I'll hear it sometimes like, I want to make a difference and help people or help animals or help nature, but I just don't know what that looks like. Or I like my job, but I don't really know if I'm fulfilled on a deep level. So that's that stirring of feeling called to do something that like makes a difference or helps people. And that is your soul wanting you to become the most authentic version of yourself, because the most authentic versions of ourselves also care about community and care about others. So sometimes I'll hear that in that way, feeling called to do something that makes a difference. So think about if you have ever felt like that, maybe you like your job, but you're just not sure that it's your ultimate purpose, or maybe you don't like your job and you're not really feeling fulfilled. Maybe you feel like, yeah, I really want to make a difference and help people. I just don't know what that looks like for me because the jobs I've tried aren't resonating. Okay, sign number 2. You're highly sensitive and pick up on the energy, like the vibes and the emotions of people around you. Now, I worded this way, I might have not understood this back in the day, but how I could understand it is like, have you ever been around someone, and it could be someone in your family, it could be someone at your office or school if you're in school, or it could be like, if you're thinking about a different time period of your life and you're around this person and they are just draining. And when you're done interacting with them, I mean, I've had it even with like teachers or colleagues or bosses, or I've had it with people in my family that whenever you are done spending time with them, you just are totally drained, totally exhausted. If you ever have heard the term energy vampire, like someone that it's kind of an older term and a little bit sensationalized, but someone that just makes you feel drained, you might feel it like that. You might feel it like if you've ever walked into a space, say you've come home from your day and you walk in and you're like, oh, something feels off. Either someone just had an argument in here, there's tension in here. That could be it too, because it's like you're highly sensitive. You're picking up on vibes of what's going on around you or emotions of people around you. Or if someone says to you like, oh, I'm fine, and it's not their tone, but it's something in there, it's really their energy, their emotion, their vibration that's letting you know like, oh, I hear them saying they're fine, but like I don't, something feels off about that. Or even just this feeling of like something feels off here, or something feels off with this person, or I feel like there's information missing here. That is also an example of being highly sensitive and picking up on the energy, the vibes, the emotions of people around you. I always misunderstood it as like, well, I'm not going around through my day and saying like, oh, this person feels like this person's experiencing this. It's not that deep because you're not really moving all the way into understanding, everything about them in that moment, but just a passing by like cursory experience, you can feel like, oh yeah, this person feels really like, I've had the converse too, like where there's someone that just is like great energy. There's either super, sometimes they're energetic, sometimes they're calm, but just there's a positivity about them, or there's something about them feels like uplifting, or you just feel good after interacting with them, even though maybe nothing special happened. That also counts as being highly sensitive and picking up on the vibes, the energy, the emotions of people around you. And often, especially as healers, if we're not trained, we don't know how to manage this energy. So sometimes we can become a little prickly, like maybe you don't love being in crowds. Maybe you need more downtime after too much peopling, is the way I usually say it, after interacting a lot. We often don't know the tools to manage our own energy. And I used to think like, oh, if I was a natural healer, like certainly I would know automatically tools. That's not the case. So that's kind of my little caveat to number 2. Highly sensitive and easily pick up on the energy and emotions, vibes of people around you. Okay, sign number 3 that you are an energy healer. People come to you as wise counsel, like a confidant, and frequently share their problems with you. This one makes me laugh because it doesn't mean you're asking them to share their problems with you. It's just, I used to ride the subway when I was a kid, and it was the strangest thing because it seemed like every time I was on there, I'd have someone come sit next to me and just start sharing their problems or about their day or their stress. So it could be something like that, where just random people share like personal information with you about their day or about something that's heavy on their heart. It could also show up as just friends needing your advice or seeking your advice, like you're the person that they listen to or they bounce things off of. And sometimes it's in our personal relationships, sometimes it's in our career relationships. So I used to have a client, and she would always say that she was the gal in her office that everyone would come by her workstation and give the gossip or give, and she's like, I don't want to hear all this gossip all the time, or, talk about their personal relationships with her outside of work. And she was trying to keep it professional. So it can show up any type of way like that. I also had a client, she was on the young side, and she would always say that elders in her life always came to her for advice, for guidance, for, just to get her opinion on things or to get her thoughts about things. So there's a lot of ways it can show up, but people come to you for advice, for guidance, to bounce things off of, to share personal information or problems with you. And we see this pretty commonly, like you're the friend people want to talk to, or people want comfort from. And it doesn't mean you do it for everybody, but you will have seen it at some point in your life, typically. Okay, number 4, you're tired of experiencing the same old struggles. Even as energy healers, whether you are or not yet, we don't necessarily, sometimes we can't see the forest for the trees. Sometimes we can't see our own blind spots, our own patterns, and we might repeat things until we realize, oh, wait a minute, this is a pattern for me of behavior. This is the emotion behind it, et cetera, et cetera. Until we do that personal work on ourselves, we might not realize our own patterns, but we know we don't want to struggle. We know we're like tired of repeating patterns or tired of having the same experience, the same struggles. I mean, I don't love that word struggle, but I think it just is helps identify what I'm saying. So sometimes people will say like, oh, if I'm a natural healer, I don't want that, because then that means I have more like quote unquote lessons, or I have more struggles that I'm going to have to face. It's not necessarily that healers have more or less struggles than the average bear. I mean, life be life, and life just happens. Like, we all have challenges. We all have things that rise up. So it's not that healers have more or less of that. It's just that our souls move us to crave resolution, to crave healing, to crave peace, to crave like love within ourselves. And the reason why is that so we may show others how to do the same, because we're all works in progress. So it doesn't mean we have more lessons or more challenge as a healer. It just means that we are less comfortable living in that struggle. We seek peace. It's why many of us read so many self-help books and try all these different methods to work on ourselves. It's that we have this discomfort that rises up within us. And the reason why is because, we are meant to work with ourselves, on ourselves, so that we can show others how to do the same, whether as a practitioner in a very active way, or whether just by example, in our own lives for our own peace and sanity. But we crave it to like an actionable level. Some people are just fine to be sad and disappointed and kind of wallow in that. And yes, of course, we're all human and we might do it for a period of time, but healers, people that are like naturally, innately energy healers, we are tired of experiencing those same old struggles. We have this extra, niggle is the word, niggle, niggle, this extra little discomfort around like wanting to work on ourselves or experience more peace, or it's kind of that feeling of like things don't have to be this hard. I'm sure there's a way, you know what I mean? So yes, you're tired of experiencing the same old struggles or patterns, behaviors, etc. Sign number 5 that you are an energy healer. You've been through a difficult situation, initiation, tribulation, which has prepared you for a role as a leader. Now, this can show up differently in everyone's lives. Obviously, we're individuals. So it could be a big capital T trauma that you have overcome in your life at some point. It could also be, just something that you have come through. So I don't love judging, this situation is worse than this situation, but just a situation in your life that was powerful for you, that was some sort of transformation. Now, it could even be something like, think of someone who's like very nervous and shy and doesn't like to ever answer in class and doesn't like to ever speak out or give answers. And then this actually I didn't used to love to give presentations in front of class. I used to get kind of nervous, believe it or not. And I took a public speaking class because I really wanted to learn how to get through this. And I really wanted to learn how to be able to speak and present and do these things when I was very early in college. So it could even be something like that, where it's like something was a struggle and then you figured it out or worked through it or worked on it. And then doesn't even mean that you're like the most amazing at it afterwards, but you've gone through this internal initiation period. This sometimes it's referred to as a growth period. It could be that perhaps you had one career and it really just wasn't for you. And so you made a change that maybe didn't make sense to everybody else. Perhaps you felt judged or you felt that other people didn't understand you. So it could be even something like that, something that you have gone through, a hill that you have climbed, that puts you in a position to have some knowledge, expertise, or to have even led the way for yourself so that you might lead the way for others. And like I said, this one is one of the like internal signs that probably has the most variations, because we've all been through something and we all have the ability to lead others to a degree. But this really has there's an undercurrent of clarity with this one. So gotten some clarity on yourself or a deep truth about the way that you work, the way the world works, the way you want to be in the world, the way you want to feel in the world. But sometimes it can be, a big trauma or a big, I keep seeing in my mind the tarot card, the Tower, like a big life crumbling moment. It could be a divorce or a loss, or loss can come in a lot of ways too. It could be a person or a job or a relationship. So an initiation, a storm that you went through, that you came out the other side. Every healer that I've ever known has some storm in their life that they have come through and come out the other side. And remember what I said, we're all works in progress. So it doesn't mean that now they're on some pedestal about it, but they certainly can empathize, sympathize, hold compassion and space for others after going through whatever the storm is that they went through, that you went through. Okay, so the number 6 sign that you are an energy healer, you would consider yourself an old soul. Now, this is funny because from the time I was a little kid, I can remember people starting to say about me, oh, she's an old soul. Sometimes it means a level of intelligence. Sometimes it means just a perspective of the world. Sometimes it's just a feeling. Have you ever met a kid that you're like, this kid feels like an old soul? They feel wise in some way. You sense that you have had either like maybe many lifetimes, or maybe you've just had a ton of experiences in this lifetime, throughout your life, varying experiences to where you feel like, I kind of joke and say like I've lived many lifetimes within this lifetime, just because I've had so many varying experiences and done so many different things, and so many different experiences at this point. So something in you kind of feels like an old soul. Now, I know that past lives don't resonate with everybody, but there is this feeling of like a wise, not that we necessarily take our own advice all the time, but like an old soul. So this has always resonated with me, and I don't really have words to express it, but for me, there was times when I was really young where I'd been to places that I just knew I'd been there before, and I was way too young to have been there before. Or there was a resonant energy in like certain church rituals or things like that just felt deeper than something I was just learning. I don't have a better way to explain this, but hopefully you guys all know what an old soul is. And do you feel like an old soul? There's very few people that I would say like, this one feels brand new kind of a thing. There are some, but even then, if you believe in past lives and multi-dimensions, there's chances that soul has had experiences other places, other times as well. So the number 6 sign that you are an energy healer is that you'd consider yourself an old soul, or have heard that about yourself, even if you don't necessarily consider yourself, you've heard it about yourself. Number 7 is that you are concerned about the state of the world today, which of course, who isn't? But not just for yourself and your own family, also for others, for the community at large, for um, uh, disenfranchised groups or for marginalized people. So not just for yourself, like from a selfish perspective of like, man, the way the world's going is really bad for me or really bad for my family, but you're also having concerns, even if it's just internally, for others and maybe even for the future, like future generations, for example. Now, this can look like stirrings around political issues or social rights issues, but it can also look like stirrings around the environment and nature and feeling concerned about the planet, our Earth, for future generations. And when I was a kid, the thing that they were always talking about was the ozone. Now we have so much more understanding about global warming and climate change, and it's something we're all experiencing. And I'm not saying you have to have concern to like a doom and gloom degree where it's hindering your functioning in the world, but like concern about the way things are going, the state of things, and what we are leaving for future generations. And like I said, from like a socioeconomic standpoint, having concern for people in groups other than just yourself and your own family. So I really feel like everyone who listens to this in any capacity can resonate with that one. So the number 8 sign that you are an energy healer is that you frequently find yourself gravitating towards blogs, books, articles, podcasts, other talks, materials that discuss topics of a spiritual nature. I'm not saying every topic resonates with you or every speaker, but you do find yourself being curious of things under that like spiritual umbrella. So whether you love card readings or whether you're interested in astrology or feng shui, or for me, I did a whole depth of study in like Ayurveda, which is a form of traditional Indian medicine from India. There's just a lot of like spiritual or woo-woo topics that you could be interested in. It could be certain deities or figures like that you are have studied or become interested in. It could be the study or be feeling drawn to the history of places or positive figures, right? So it could be figures that are associated with the religion or not associated with the religion. Um, but that, I mean historical figures like Nelson Mandela and Maya Angelou, because yes, they did wonderful work in the world, but there's a spiritual essence to the messages that they gave us while they were here. So I think this one presents in so many different ways because there's so many different versions and shades and distinctions in things of a spiritual nature. But yeah, you're drawn to or interested in, or your curiosity is piqued by things of a spiritual nature. Now, this one has always been true for me. I even when I was younger, I probably wouldn't have identified it like that. I don't know if I would have considered like things of a spiritual nature, but I would have, things of a mystical nature maybe would have resonated with me because I've always been, I spent a ton of time in Salem when I was a kid, teen, I guess is the way to say it, exploring and understanding, and felt drawn to things there and understandings there. But I always felt drawn to things that I felt were mystical. And that could even be things in nature, because nature is spiritual. There's a spirit and energy and essence, a divine life that exists in all things of nature too, not just people. So that could show up in a lot of ways. But think about the different phases in your life too. Because for me, if I look even to when I was like a little kiddo, I was drawn to things that would have been of a spiritual nature. I was really drawn to nature. I had like a friendship with the tree that lived in my front yard. So I might be a little far on that end of the spectrum, just as a woo woo mystic over here. But think about the different phases in your life, because sometimes as we grow, we kind of get programmed away from these things. We're maybe not sitting in the ground and inspecting the beauty and magic of every blade of grass like we do when we're like 5 years old, because we just get drowned out by the busyness of life. So you might have to think about the different phases of your life for this one. For me, I can identify it through and through, but we're all different. So the number 9 sign that you are an energy healer is that you are very affected when there's suffering around you. And this could be whether it's people or pets or Mother Nature. And I wrote myself a little note that says bonus points if you feel drawn to or protective of the underdog. And I think that is also really the mark of the energy healer. We feel very affected when there's suffering in nature. And I mean, think about during the COVID time, the lockdown time. Most of us saw images or stories about how like parts of the ocean were healing themselves, and parts of like the canals in Italy, the water was never cleaner, and things like that. If you felt a little uplifted by that, or even a little bit like, oh wow, we are, leaving nature alone is making a big difference for the healing of nature, for example. It could touch you in that way. It could touch you in the way of like when pets are suffering. And I know so many of you really have a heart for animals and pets and Mother Nature. So it can be, of course, we're affected by the suffering of people around us, but for some of us, it resonates stronger with animals or with nature. So wherever you are in that, but just this feeling of knowing that you feel deeply affected when there's suffering around you. But like I said, bonus points if you feel drawn to or protective of the underdogs. That often is a real mark of the healer as well, is that we are defenders of the underdog. I have kind of a funny story for this. I hope I'm allowed to say it in specificity the way I'm going to. But when I was a little kid, 3-4 years old, I can remember, do you remember Tom and Jerry? Are you guys all old enough for that? It's kind of like the Looney Tunes-esque, where the cat chases the mouse and is constantly hurting the mouse. I could not watch those cartoons. And like I said, I know I'm kind of on an extreme end of the spectrum here, just this who I am as an individual, but just the not only the like underdogness of the mouse, but like I couldn't handle them hurting each other. Like, they'd get back at each other sometimes. Obviously, that's the nature of the show. One does something, the other one, then comes and hits them with a pan or whatever. For me, as a little kid of 3 or 4, that felt so incredibly violent and stressful and hurtful. And I hated that show. The only thing I liked about it was that they would put the birthdays, and I thought somehow magically they were going to say happy birthday to me on my birthday. But so I know that's like a funny little example, but that's like the earliest example I can remember of just feeling anguish at the suffering of others. And these were cartoons, which I know might seem ridiculous to some of you, but maybe there's something like that you can identify in the history of your current life, that there's something that just felt painful to watch in the suffering of others, and particularly with an underdog of any kind. So, just kind of think about how that resonates with you. I also have my whole life, I on and off, have gotten in trouble sometimes for standing up for the underdog in public ways, or in maybe not the most beneficial ways, but if you feel really like you want to stand up for underdogs, or like you feel really affected by the suffering of people or pets or nature around you, that is a huge mark of the natural energy healer. So the number 10 sign that you are an energy healer, you have a nagging feeling that there's something more that you're supposed to do and be. This one has bonus points too. Bonus points if you already feel you have an awareness that there's something more going on energetically than just what we know with our physical senses, like touch, see, hear, etc. So this is a little different than the first one, because the number 1 sign, remember, was like that you feel like maybe you're not in your calling entirely. This is a little different, because this is this feeling of like, I know there's more going on here than just what meets the eye. It's this feeling of I know that there's a something bigger for me to be doing. It's not just about making a difference, although it is part of it. But there's this feeling about like there's something bigger I'm supposed to do here, or I want to affect more people, or I want to affect people in a way that will ripple out, right? I want to hold space for a bigger collective of people or a bigger community of people, or this feeling of, like I said, like there's more going on here than meets the eye, or I know that there's something more than just this physical world, this physical plane of existence, for example. Some people experience that as belief and faith in a higher power. Some people experience that as understanding of divine love and energy, but however that resonates with you, or whatever words you like in there, just this feeling, this understanding, this kind of nagging, like I said, feeling that there's something more than just what we can smell, touch, see with our physical senses, and that you're supposed to be a part of this something more in an active way or in a bigger way. This one's a little bit intangible, so it's for me, it's like a feeling of a resonation, and I this is where I could identify looking back, like, yeah, I've always felt like there's more than just what I can see or more than just what I can hear. I guess as a medium, this one has to resonate with me, because there's definitely more going on all around us than just what our physical senses understand. And we really are meant to be able to have access to and work with the energy around us. It's more than just, this is only one slice of the pie, our physical senses. There's so much more for us to know and experience, and there's this web of life in the way things intertwine. A little bit butterfly effect-ish kind of a thing. But yeah, it's this knowing, this feeling that there is something more that you're connected to, or something more that you're meant to do or be. And like I said, bonus points if you're already aware that there is more going on energetically than just what we know with our physical, touch, see, smell, hear senses. Okay, are you ready for the last number 11 sign that you are an energy healer? At times you feel like you don't quite belong anywhere. I know this one kind of feels a little lackluster, because it's like, oh, does that mean I'm always going to feel like this? No. But there is this inner compass of when you haven't quite found your place, or you haven't quite found your people. In my courses, we call it the woo-woo crew. So you haven't quite found where you belong. And oftentimes you might feel like for me, I kind of felt like, am I the only one that realizes that, like, this little drama that we're experiencing here in school, there's got to be more than this, or this 9 to 5, there's got to be more than this. Like, am I the only one that's like awake and getting this? Or am I the only one that wants to work on myself here? Am I the only one that's trying to like have better communication? So for me, that's how it showed up. But I the feeling of not quite belonging anywhere deeply resonates with me. Even when I do have friends, obviously. I think we all have like at least a friend that we love and care about. But even in class groups, even still, there's times where I feel like, oh yeah, I know that we're all doing the same thing here, but I don't quite belong here. I don't quite fit in here. And until you find the people that you feel safe with, the community that you feel there's a give and take with, that nourishes you, that nurtures you, that supports you, that you also want to support, and that you also want to engage with, until you find that group of people for you, however large or small that group is, there's going to be this nagging or tugging feeling that you don't quite fully belong anywhere. And the other thing is, some of it is about starting to understand the deeper flow of energy and the deeper energetic healing and movement that's available to you and to all of us. And that can help us feel like we belong, because then we're understanding those missing pieces. And that's maybe how I would have resonated with it in the biggest way, is that I always kind of felt like there's missing information here. There's missing pieces. Even when I was enjoying certain aspects of what I was doing, I kind of always felt like something's missing. Like there's information I'm not being told, or there's more going on behind the scenes here, or I'm missing the larger connection here. So that feeling of like you don't fit in or something's missing still in the belonging of where you are in life, in your groups, in the world. And it can even show up if you have amazing community and a great family and friends that love you and you're very plugged in. It can just be this one aspect of you that hasn't fully come to fruition yet. So like I said, a lot of these can show up in a lot of ways because we're all different and unique individuals. But I'm so curious to know how many of these signs resonated with you. I'd be willing to bet several. But let me know in the comments. And if you are wanting to learn more about energy healing, I'm really excited. I'm announcing a free live workshop that is coming up. If you've been with me a while, you know that I do these periodically. This one is a little different. This is going to be called Meet Your Inner Mystic Healer. And it's free, it's live, it's online. It's 3 days for sensitives and empaths. And you can finally experience your own hidden potential as a healer and start using real energy healing techniques the right way. So in this workshop, it's going to be held, like I said, online October 9th to 11th at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, but replays will be available for a limited time. So even if you can't make the live sessions, don't worry. I'll be sending out information about the replays. If you want to sign up, you can go to my website, joyfulmedium.com, right on the homepage. If you are listening to this before October 9th, of 2023, go to my website, joyfulmedium.com, sign up on the homepage, drop your email in there, and it will automatically sign you up. You can also join my Facebook community, Joy's Soul Spa, fill out the questions and leave your email there, and that can also put you on the list. I do need your email because how else am I going to send out the dates and the recordings and all of that to you? But it'll be held October 9th through 11th. And like I said, replays available. So here's what you're going to learn. You're going to learn what grounding actually does. This is very misunderstood. I didn't used to understand it. Like I said, a lot of these tools at the beginning, I was like, what do you mean chakras? I don't know. You're going to learn what energetic grounding actually does. And you're going to learn the only tool to ground and clear your energy you'll ever need. So how we were talking about when we can kind of pick up the energy of others, or other people drain us and we don't necessarily know how to like clear our energy or manage our energy. This is what we're going to learn, because I think this is so important to empower ourselves. Yes, we're sensitive, but it's a blessing. And if we can learn how to manage and understand our energy, it makes everything a lot better. We're also going to learn how to sense and move energy in your body and in your auric field. You'll feel this one right away. So this is experiential, and I'll kind of walk you through these tools. Now, I'll explain this really quickly. I didn't used to know what the aura was. I was like, yeah, I've heard that, and I don't know if I believe in that. And even though I could see colors around people from the time I was small, I wouldn't have put that 2 and 2 together with like, that's an auric field and there's information in there. I had no understanding of why I saw colors or what they meant or any of it, which is all a part of the healing I teach and understand now. Color, how to work with colors, what all the colors mean, healing with color, all of that. But the auric field is really just your personal space bubble. Everyone can recognize it. If you have ever stood online, like in a queue for anything at the grocery store, in a line to wait to check out, or anywhere else, and someone has stepped too close behind you in line, even if you're not looking with the eyes in the back of your head, you could just feel when someone is standing too close. It's because they're in your auric field. They're in your personal space bubble. Even little kids know their personal space bubble. It's just a natural understanding we have. It's the emanation of our soul that creates the energy field around us. They've actually done studies, and there's quote unquote proof now, even though we've all known forever that we have a personal space bubble and we know when someone's in our personal space. So you're going to learn how to move and feel energy in your body and in your auric field, your personal space bubble. It's a really fun lesson, so I get excited about it. I get excited about all this, obviously. And you're also going to learn, or going to have an experience practicing self-healing with archangels. You're going to be amazed at what you can sense and feel. Like I said, early on in this work, I would have told you, like, I can't sense anything. I can't feel anything. if I don't see it with my physical eyes, like, I don't know what you're talking about. But it's why I've developed the techniques in the way that I have. So whether you're very advanced and already know how to work with archangels and already know how to do some self-healing, or have had some Reiki experience, or whether this is the first time you've heard of any of this, you'll be able to work with these tools. It's an all levels workshop. And I'll talk more about it at the workshop, but I really, especially if you have ever like taken a weekend workshop of Reiki or gotten certified in a like online course for healing, I really highly recommend that you take this workshop, because I think it's different to really have a working understanding of the tools in a way that you can practice and feel and have experiences. It's just a totally different thing. And I believe in immersion, because when someone just explains the tools to you, it's almost like if you've never, I know I use a lot of food examples on this podcast, but if you've never like cooked before and someone's just going to explain to you the steps of like working an oven and cooking a meal, it's going to be pretty scary to try that on your own at home after just having like heard a quick lesson about it, versus like the chef standing next to you and kind of holding your hand and step by step talking to you over and over and through practice and practice and practice of it. That is the way that I prefer learning with energy to be, just because I think it's so much more powerful when we can actually have real experiences in our own system. We understand it in a different way, right? Someone could explain feelings to you, but until you feel a feeling, it's kind of hard to understand what they are. So I hope you will join me for this online live workshop. Like I said, for me, healing is really the purpose of everything. It's our own growth and expansion. It's our ability to start to work with and understand the unseen world, because there's so much more than just what our physical senses experience. And even think about it with just something like sound, for example. Yes, you're experiencing sound if you have a working auditory system, like like you can hear. You're experiencing sound either through your ears by hearing, or perhaps through vibration if you've got minimal hearing ability. But you don't see the sound waves. You're not having the full experience of what sound is. Yes, we understand bits of what sound is, but there's so much more that we're not seeing or hearing or sensing that's a part of the way sound waves travel and the way the energy moves. We don't see that with our physical eyes, but it's totally happening. And it's not different than this energy healing. I mean, all the versions of us that we've ever been are contributing to who we are today. If there's something that happens to us in our younger life, whether we judge it as positive or negative, it's affecting who we are today. So for me, healing is everything. And like I said, I feel like it's the purpose of all the other spiritual gifts, and why so many mediums and psychics and channels, if you ask them, they started out in some sort of healing modality or healing capacity. So whether you just want to dabble for yourself, or you feel like you know that you have a calling to actually express these gifts and be a professional healer, I hope that you will join me for this free live workshop. It's going to be so much fun. October 9th through 11th, 2023, with replays. Go to my website, joyfulmedium.com, and right on the homepage, you can sign up. The lessons I'm so tongue-tied. The lessons will also be broadcast in the Facebook group, Joy's Soul Spa, but I can't tell you how many times someone either like falls off the email list or like changes their email and then is all upset because they're not getting the email. So please get on the sign up for it so you can get the email reminders and you could get the replays and all of that, because you can still practice on the replay. And we'll see. Sometimes I add some extra lessons in, so that might happen. We have so much fun when we do these free live workshops. So I'm so excited to teach these tools and to help you meet your inner mystic healer. Let me know what you think. Let me know your experiencing, your like personal experience with energy healing. I cannot wait to share this workshop with you guys, but also it's just so important for me that you kind of consider these signs that we talked about today and start to feel within yourself okay, there is more than just I understand with my physical senses. And like we all know, hindsight is often way more clear than when we're experiencing in the moment. So perhaps, like me, you can look back and identify some of these things that you might not have understood in the moment. So email me or comment on my social media. You can follow me most places at Joyful Medium. YouTube, I am Psychic Medium or Joy Giovanni Psychic Medium. You can't change your YouTube handle once you create it. So that's what we got. But let me know how many of these resonate with you. You could just drop it as a number. And if you have someone in your life that you care about, that you would love to come to this free workshop, Meet Your Inner Mystic Healer, or that you feel like might identify with some of these 11 signs that you're an energy healer, share this episode with them. I would love that. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already. It really means a lot to me. And I really am so excited to see so many of you at this free live workshop. You guys have been asking me, when is the next free live workshop? It's been a while since I have done one. It was in the earlier part of this year. So I am just, as they say in Boston, I'm wicked psyched about this one. I hope you'll join me. Big hugs, lots of love. Bye for now from inside Spirit Speakeasy.